Ever wondered what Elvis sounded like when no one was supposed to be listening? What if the King's most authentic moments were captured when he thought the tapes weren't rolling? Elvis Presley, the undisputed king of rock and roll, left behind a musical legacy that continues to captivate audiences decades after his death. While fans worldwide are familiar with his chart-topping hits and electrifying performances, there exists a treasure trove of demo recordings that reveal a more intimate, unfiltered side of the music legend. These rare audio glimpses show Elvis in his most natural state, experimenting, rehearsing, and sometimes just having fun with music. Away from the polished production of official releases, these demos offer fans a chance to experience the raw talent and creative process that made Elvis the cultural phenomenon he became. Hidden in vaults, personal collections, and sometimes accidentally preserved on forgotten tapes, these demo recordings provide a packaged pass to Elvis's artistic development. They capture moments of pure creativity, technical adjustments, and sometimes personal vulnerability that the carefully crafted public image of Elvis rarely revealed. From his early days at Sun Records to his later years, these unofficial recordings tell the story of an artist, constantly evolving, experimenting, and searching for the perfect sound. For die-hard fans and music historians alike, these demos are musical archaeology, artifacts that help complete our understanding of one of music's most influential figures. They reveal the man behind the myth, showing his musical instincts in their most natural form. Let's explore 10 of these forgotten gems that offer remarkable insights into the artistic journey of the king. Number 10. I'll Take You Home Again, Kathleen. Home recording, 1959. Did you know Elvis sometimes recorded just for himself? Who would have guessed the king had such a deep appreciation for old traditional songs? This haunting home recording captures Elvis in a completely different light than most fans have ever seen him. Recorded during his army service years, this intimate performance of the 19th century ballad, I'll Take You Home Again, Kathleen, was never intended for commercial release. Elvis, alone with his guitar in his Bad Nauheim residence in Germany, recorded this simply because he loved the song. What makes this demo particularly fascinating is how it contradicts the rock and roll image that defined Elvis in the public eye. Here he tackles a traditional Irish-American folk song with genuine emotion and reverence. His voice is tender, reflective, and shows a maturity beyond his then 24 years. There's a slight echo in the recording that adds to its ghostly, timeless quality. Music historians have pointed to this recording as evidence of Elvis's diverse musical tastes and influences. While RCA was marketing him as a rock and roll rebel, this private recording shows his appreciation for traditional melodies and classic songwriting. The performance is stripped of any showmanship or theatrical elements. It's just Elvis connecting with a song that moved him. The recording remained completely unknown to the public until years after Elvis's death, when it was discovered among his personal effects. It offers a rare window into what Elvis chose to sing when no one was listening. The recording quality is understandably rough, captured on consumer-grade equipment of the era, but this technical imperfection only adds to its authenticity and charm. When finally released to the public decades later as part of archival collections, many fans were stunned by this different vocal approach. Elvis sings in a lower register than his commercial recordings of the period, allowing for a warmth and intimacy rarely heard on his official releases. This wasn't Elvis the entertainer. This was Elvis the music lover, singing purely for the joy of it. Number 9. Tomorrow is a Long Time. Studio Demo, 1966. can a Bob Dylan song reveal a side of Elvis few ever witnessed? What happens when the king strips away all the production gloss? This 1966 demo of Bob Dylan's folk masterpiece Tomorrow Is a Long Time represents one of Elvis's most authentic studio moments ever captured. Recorded during the sessions for the Spin Out soundtrack, this take was significantly different from most of Elvis's output during his Hollywood years. The song was reportedly one of Elvis's favorite Dylan compositions, and his connection to the material is evident in every note. The demo features a remarkably restrained Elvis, accompanied by minimal instrumentation, primarily acoustic guitar, light percussion, and subtle bass. What makes this recording special is how it captures Elvis's genuine appreciation for the folk music movement that was in many ways positioning itself as an alternative to the commercial pop he had come to represent. There's no attempt to Elvisify the song with dramatic flourishes or commercial hooks. Music journalist Grail Marcus later described this recording as the most beautiful, the most heartbreaking performance Elvis ever gave, pointing to the intimate nature of the demo as evidence that Elvis was capable of far more musical depth than his movie soundtrack suggested. Indeed, the contrast between this thoughtful, nuanced interpretation and the formulaic songs Elvis was recording for his films during this period is striking. The control room chatter preserved before and after the take reveals an engaged, focused Elvis directing his musicians with clear intent. He can be heard discussing the song's feeling and approach, showing his active role as an interpreter and arranger, a side of his musicianship that was often overshadowed by his image as a performer. Though a more produced version would appear as a bonus track on the Spin Out album, many fans and critics consider this raw demo superior in its emotional directness. The demo remained relatively obscure for years, known primarily to collectors, until wider releases in later decades brought it to broader attention. For those accustomed to the polished Elvis of the 1960s film era, this recording came as a revelation. Evidence that beneath the commercial constraints the artist remained connected to contemporary music trends and capable of remarkable sensitivity. Number 8. That's All Right. First, take it Sun Records, 1954. What really happened when a young truck driver first stepped into Sun Records? How did a failed ballad singer transform into rock royalty in mere minutes? The legendary story of Elvis's breakthrough at Sun Records has been told countless times, but few have heard the actual first attempt at That's All Right. Before the version that would change music history, there was a tentative, searching initial take that captured the exact moment of discovery when Elvis was transitioning from an unknown ballad singer to the rockabilly pioneer who would conquer the world. This raw first take, preserved by Sam Phillips more by accident than design, features Elvis finding his way through the Arthur Crudup blues number with a nervous energy. His voice occasionally cracks, the tempo wavers, and you can hear the young singer working out his approach in real time. Scotty Moore's guitar work is similarly exploratory, less confident than on the released version, but fascinating in showing how quickly the musicians were adapting to this new fusion style. The between-take discussion captured on the tape is perhaps even more valuable than the music itself. You can hear Sam Phillips offering direction, Elvis responding with a mix of deference and growing confidence, and the collective excitement as they realize they're onto something special. At one point, Phillips can be heard saying, "That's different, boy. You might have something here." What makes this demo historically significant is that it documents the actual birth of Elvis's signature sound. Music historians consider this session the Big Bang of rock and roll, the moment when country blues and pop sensibilities merged into something entirely new. Hearing Elvis work through his initial uncertainty gives listeners the sense of witnessing history as it happens. The quality of the recording is understandably primitive, even by 1950s standards. The single microphone picks up ambient noises from the studio, including what sounds like someone opening a door at one point. But these technical limitations only enhance the recording's documentary value, placing the listener right in that small Memphis studio on that fateful summer evening. When this unpolished take finally emerged in archival releases decades later, it provided a crucial missing piece in understanding Elvis's artistic evolution. The contrast between this hesitant first attempt and the confident released version demonstrates how quickly Elvis adapted and how intuitively he grasped what would connect with audiences. Number 7. Soldiers and Sailors on Parade. Unreleased, Patriotic Song, 1968. Could one forgotten patriotic demo reveal Elvis's complicated feelings about his military service? What compelled the king to record a song he knew would never be released? In early 1968, at a time when anti-war sentiment was growing across America during the Vietnam conflict, Elvis recorded a demo of an original patriotic composition titled Soldiers and Sailors on Parade. This unexpected recording, made during a period when Elvis was primarily focused on his special offers, a fascinating glimpse into his personal politics and patriotic sentiments that he largely kept separate from his public persona. The demo features Elvis singing with unusual conviction about military service and national pride, themes he rarely addressed in his commercial recordings. The arrangement is minimal, primarily piano with Elvis, occasionally keeping rhythm by slapping his hand against his leg. What makes the recording particularly interesting is how it contrasts with the counterculture movement that was dominating popular music at the time. While many artists of the era were recording anti-war statements, Elvis created this private tribute to military service. Music historians have connected this recording to Elvis's own military experience, suggesting it represented his complicated feelings about his time in the Army. While his military service had interrupted his career at its peak, Elvis had frequently expressed pride in having served. This demo seems to represent a personal statement never intended for the public, a musical reflection on duty and service recorded simply because he felt compelled to express these sentiments. The recording survived only because engineer Bones Howe left the tape machine running during what was supposed to be a break in a formal recording session. At one point, you can hear Elvis remark, "Nobody wants to hear this kind of thing anymore," suggesting he was aware the song ran counter to contemporary trends. This self-awareness makes the recording all the more poignant. Elvis created it, knowing it had no commercial potential. The composition itself is straightforward and old-fashioned by late 1960s standards, with lyrics celebrating military tradition in a style more reminiscent of the 1940s than the psychedelic era. Elvis delivers it with surprising earnestness, however, giving listeners rare insight into his personal values at a time when he was otherwise focused on reclaiming his commercial relevance with more contemporary material. When this recording finally surfaced in the 1990s, it challenged simplified narratives about Elvis's artistic identity during this pivotal period. Between the movie soundtrack years and his Vegas era, this intimate demo reveals a man more complex in his tastes and sentiments than his public catalog suggested. Number 6. If I Can Dream. Early concept version, 1968. How different was Elvis's powerful civil rights statement before it reached the public? What raw emotions did he pour into the private rehearsal that the polished version couldn't capture? If I Can Dream stands as one of Elvis's most significant recordings, a passionate plea for tolerance and understanding recorded just months after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., while the official release, with its soaring orchestra, This early concept recording features Elvis with just a piano, working through the song's emotional peaks and valleys with an intensity that some argue exceeds even the released version. The demo was recorded as Elvis was preparing for his 1968 comeback special, at a time when he was actively seeking material that would re-establish his relevance in a rapidly changing cultural landscape. What makes this version particularly revealing is how it captures Elvis's immediate, raw, emotional connection to the material. Without the orchestration and backing vocalists that would later be added, listeners can hear every nuance in Elvis's voice, the slight break when he reaches for certain notes, the controlled fury in some phrases, and the near whisper in others. At one point he stops and asks to take it from the bridge again, explaining, "I want to get this right. This one matters." The demo reveals Elvis's direct involvement in shaping the song's message. Between takes, he can be heard discussing the lyrics with producer Steve Binder, emphasizing certain words and phrases that spoke to the turbulent social climate of 1968. For a singer often criticized for not writing his own material, this recording demonstrates how thoroughly Elvis could make a song his own through interpretation and arrangement. Technically, the recording is remarkably clear for a working demo, suggesting that even at this early stage there was recognition of the song's importance. The piano player, believed to be Elvis himself in some sections, occasionally fumbles a chord progression, and Elvis hums certain parts where he's still memorizing lyrics, giving the whole recording an authentic, documentary quality. When this demo version finally emerged in archival releases, it provided crucial context for understanding Elvis's artistic intentions during this pivotal career moment. Far from simply recording a powerful anthem handed to him by professionals, this raw version reveals an artist deeply engaged with the song's social message and determined to deliver it with appropriate gravity. The contrast between this searching, vulnerable performance and the polished power of the released version offers a fascinating glimpse into Elvis's creative process. Number 5. Blue Moon, Alternative Falsetto Version, 1954. What mysterious recording technique made Elvis sound like he was singing from another dimension? How did a technical experiment create one of his most otherworldly performances? Among the earliest Elvis recordings at Sun Records is an alternative take of Blue Moon that sounds unlike anything else in his catalog. While the officially released version of this Rodgers and Hart standard is haunting in its own right, featuring Elvis's ethereal falsetto, this alternative demo takes the otherworldly quality to an entirely different level through experimental recording techniques. This version captures a 19-year-old Elvis experimenting with the limits of his voice, singing almost entirely in a ghostly high register that Sam Phillips enhanced with an unusual tape delay effect. The result is a recording that sounds as if it's emanating from some spectral plane, Elvis's voice echoing and floating over Scotty Moore's minimal guitar accompaniment. Bill Black's bass is barely audible, creating a sparse, dreamlike sonic landscape. What makes this demo particularly fascinating is the audible discussion between takes where Phillips can be heard coaching Elvis to sound like you're calling from across the valley. Elvis responds with increasing confidence in this experimental approach, pushing his natural voice into territory that foreshadowed the falsetto techniques that would later become common in rock vocals. At one point, you can hear Elvis laugh and say, "I sound like a girl," before Phillips encourages him to continue with the unusual approach. The recording quality itself contributes to the demo's unique character. The primitive equipment at Sun Studios, combined with Phillips' innovative use of slapback echo, created a sound that couldn't be precisely brabbered, even when better technology became available. Music engineers have studied this recording for decades, attempting to deconstruct exactly how this haunting effect was achieved with such limited tools. Elvis never again recorded in quite this style, making this demo a singular experiment in his vast catalog. When the alternative take finally reached the public through archive releases, listeners were struck by how it revealed Elvis's willingness to push artistic boundaries, even at the very beginning of his career. Far from the safe commercial approach that would characterize some of his later work, this recording shows a young artist fearlessly exploring the outer limits of his instrument. The contrast between this experimental approach and Elvis's more straightforward rock and country recordings from the same period suggests a musical curiosity and range that went well beyond what his early public image might have suggested. For those who dismiss early Elvis as simply a good-looking kid with a catchy sound, this demo provides compelling evidence of his adventurous musicality and Phillips's forward-thinking production concepts. Number 4. Are You Lonesome Tonight? Studio Rehearsal with Dialogue, 1960. What happened when Elvis decided to record a 1920s standard as a dramatic monologue? How did his theatrical ambitions shine through in a forgotten studio rehearsal? Most fans are familiar with Elvis's 1960 hit version of Are You Lonesome Tonight complete with its spoken word middle section. What remains largely unknown is the existence of an extended rehearsal recording that captures Elvis working through multiple approaches to the song, revealing his surprising theatrical ambitions and attention to dramatic delivery. This lengthy studio document, running over 10 minutes, features Elvis directing the band, experimenting with different emotional shadings for the spoken monologue, and even performing extended Shakespearean passages not included in the final release. At one point, Elvis can be heard reciting several lines from As You Like It, with genuine dramatic flair, suggesting a deeper interest in theatrical performance than his public persona typically acknowledged. What makes this demo particularly revealing is how it captures Elvis's meticulous approach to interpretation. He tries the spoken section with various emotional colorings, sometimes with melancholy restraint, other times with more pronounced passion. Between takes, he discusses the character's emotional state with producer Chet Atkins, revealing a level of interpretive thought that went far beyond simply singing the notes as written. The Jordanaires, Elvis's longtime backing vocalists, can be heard suggesting harmonic approaches, with Elvis actively engaging in the arrangement decisions. At one moment, he stops the proceedings to demonstrate exactly how he wants their parts to fade beneath his spoken words, showing a producer's ear for detail. This level of creative control contradicts the narrative that Elvis was merely a performer executing others' visions. Technical aspects of the recording add to its documentary value. The microphones were left open throughout the session, capturing casual banter that reveals Elvis's comfort and authority in the studio environment. His easy rapport with the musicians shows a professional confidence that belies the sometimes dismissive portrayal of him as merely a label commodity. Music historians have pointed to this extended rehearsal as evidence of Elvis's unfulfilled dramatic potential. His careful attention to the nuances of spoken delivery suggests he might have had a significant career as a dramatic actor had his film career taken a more serious direction. When Elvis remarks, "I could have done something with Hamlet," it's a throwaway line delivered with enough conviction to make listeners wonder what might have been. When this rehearsal recording finally emerged decades after Elvis's death, it provided a crucial missing piece in understanding his artistic aspirations beyond rock and roll stardom. The care and intelligence he brings to this vintage pop standard reveals a performer with ambitions that transcended the limitations often placed on him by his management and public expectation. Number 3. Suspicious Minds, Early Morning, Demo Session, 1969. When did Elvis know he had found the comeback hit that would save his career? What does a 4 a.m. recording session reveal about his dedication to musical perfection? Suspicious Minds stands as one of Elvis's most significant late career triumphs, returning him to the top of the charts after years of soundtrack recordings. But few fans have heard the remarkable early morning demo session, where Elvis, exhausted yet determined, worked through multiple approaches to the song until he found exactly the right emotional tone. This raw studio recording, captured at American Sound Studio in Memphis during a marathon session that extended until dawn, features Elvis working closely with producer Chip's Moment to shape what would become his last Pound 1 single. What makes this demo particularly fascinating is how it documents Elvis's active role in arranging the song, contradicting the narrative that he was merely a voice for hire during this era. The tape captures Elvis suggesting specific instrumental approaches, working out the tempo shifts that would become central to the song's dramatic effect, and experimenting with different vocal phrasings. At one point, clearly tired but refusing to quit, Elvis can be heard saying, "Let's try it again, but this time I want to build it more slowly. The tension needs to come gradually." This level of artistic involvement shows a performer deeply engaged with his material, not simply following producers' directions. What's particularly revealing is the evolution of Elvis's vocal approach throughout the session. Early takes feature a more aggressive, almost angry interpretation, while later attempts find the perfect balance of suspicion and vulnerability that made the final version so compelling. You can literally hear Elvis discovering the character of the song as the session progresses, his interpretive choices becoming more refined with each take. The musician's fatigue is occasionally evident. A missed drum cue here, a flubbed bass line there, but there's also a palpable sense of collective discovery as the arrangement comes together. Between takes, Elvis keeps morale high with jokes and encouragement, demonstrating leadership in the studio that rarely comes through in official accounts of his recording career. Technical elements of this demo add to its documentary value. The control room microphone occasionally picks up producer Chip's Moment, giving specific direction about microphone placement and balance, offering rare insight into the technical process behind Elvis's Memphis sessions. At several points, you can hear discussions about the innovative use of studio space to create the sonic separation that characterizes these recordings. When this extended session recording finally became available through archival releases, it transformed understanding of Elvis's late 1960s comeback. Far from the passive participant sometimes portrayed in simplistic biographies, this document reveals an artist actively fighting for his musical relevance, willing to work through the night to capture exactly the right performance of a song he recognized as potentially career-changing. Number 2. Burning Love. Rehearsal with False Stewards, 1972. How did Elvis really feel about recording his last great rock hit? What did he say when he thought the tapes weren't rolling? Burning Love stands as Elvis's last major rock and roll. Hit a high-energy performance that reached pound 2 on the charts in 1972. What fans haven't heard is the revealing rehearsal tape that captures Elvis's initial reluctance to tackle the contemporary rocker, followed by his gradual embrace of the song as he recognized its potential. This extended studio document begins with Elvis expressing reservations about the Dennis Linde composition, questioning whether it fits his style. "This is for those kids with the long hair," he jokes to guitarist James Burton. What makes this recording so fascinating is how it captures Elvis's transformation from skeptic to enthusiastic performer over the course of a single rehearsal session, providing rare insight into his artistic decision-making process. The demo features multiple false starts as Elvis works out his approach to the vocal, experimenting with different levels of intensity and phrasing. Particularly revealing is his attention to the song's rhythm, as he can be heard discussing with drummer Ronnie Tutt exactly how to handle the driving beat. "Give me something that burns," Elvis says at one point, consciously embracing the song's fiery theme in the percussion arrangement. Between takes, there's candid discussion about contemporary music with Elvis, expressing both admiration and bewilderment at some current trends. This studio chatter provides valuable context for understanding Elvis's position in the changing musical landscape of the early 1970s, an established star working to find his place in an era increasingly dominated by singer-songwriters and rock bands. What's particularly striking about this rehearsal is Elvis's vocal transformation. Early attempts show him singing almost sarcastically, as if distancing himself from the material. By the later takes, however, he's fully committed, finding the raw rock and roll energy that made the final version so compelling. You can literally hear him rediscovering his rock voice after years of ballads and middle-of-the-road material. The technical quality of this rehearsal recording is surprisingly good, suggesting it was captured as part of formal session documentation rather than on informal equipment. Studio microphones pick up clear separation between instruments, allowing listeners to focus on specific musical elements as the arrangement develops. At several points, Elvis can be heard directing sound levels, asking for more guitar in the headphones or less echo on my voice, demonstrating his attention to the technical aspects of recording. When this rehearsal finally surfaced, decades after its recording, it provided crucial context for understanding Elvis's relationship with rock music in his later career. Rather than simply going through the motions on contemporary material selected by others, this document reveals an artist actively engaging with new songs, bringing his own sensibility to them, and sometimes rediscovering his core musical strengths in the process. Number 1. Unchained Melody. Backstage Rehearsal, 1977. Could Elvis's most haunting recording be one he never intended anyone to hear? What does a private piano practice session reveal about his final days? Perhaps the most emotionally powerful of all Elvis demos is a recording never meant for public consumption at all. A backstage rehearsal of Unchained Melody captured on a portable cassette recorder just months before his death in 1977. This raw, unvarnished performance offers a heartbreaking glimpse into Elvis's artistic soul during his final days, when his body was failing but his musical instincts remained profoundly intact. The recording captures Elvis alone at a piano backstage at a concert venue, working through the Roy Hamilton classic as preparation for that evening's performance. What makes this document so extraordinary is its intimacy. There's no band, no producer, no audience, just Elvis communing with a song that clearly held deep personal meaning for him. His voice, though showing signs of the strain that marked his final performances, achieves moments of stunning beauty and emotional depth. What's particularly revealing is how this private moment contradicts the public narrative of Elvis's final years. While news reports focused on his weight gain and erratic behavior, this recording reveals an artist still deeply connected to music, still working to perfect his craft away from the spotlight. At one point, he stops and repeats a particularly challenging vocal passage, demonstrating a commitment to excellence that belies the caricature of an indifferent performer going through the motions. Hey, technical limitations of this recording actually enhance its power. Captured on consumer-grade equipment, probably placed casually on the piano, the audio quality is far from professional. Background noises occasionally intrude, and the piano sounds slightly out of tune. Yet these imperfections only add to the recording's documentary value, creating an unmediated connection to a private artistic moment. Most poignant is Elvis's piano playing, which is competent, but clearly that of someone who plays for personal enjoyment rather than professional skill. There's something deeply moving about hearing one of music's greatest vocalists accompanying himself modestly, occasionally hitting wrong notes, but never losing the emotional thread of the song. This is Elvis, the music lover, not Elvis the superstar. When this cassette recording eventually surfaced years after Elvis's death, many fans found it more affecting than any of his official final releases. The contrast between this naked, unproduced performance and the sometimes overblown arrangements of his last official recordings suggest that Elvis's pure musicality remained intact, even as commercial considerations sometimes pushed his public work in less satisfying directions. Music critics have pointed to this recording as evidence that, despite the physical challenges and prescription drug issues that plagued his final years, Elvis retained an authentic connection to his art until the very end. In its unguarded intimacy, this accidental document may be the most honest performance Elvis ever unknowingly released to the world. Will we ever truly know the real Elvis that existed behind the carefully constructed public image? Could these forgotten recordings actually provide a more authentic portrait than the officially sanctioned releases that defined his career?